Welcome to the Couch Scouts Podcast. We provide league-winning analysis, advice, and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Scout, draft, win. Here's your host, Matt Cooper.
Welcome to the Couch Scouts Podcast. I am your host, Matt Cooper. With me is my co-host, Matt Rupert. How you doing, Matt?
Doing great, man. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm at my parents' house this week, so if you're watching on the video stream on YouTube, the background might look a little different than what you're used to seeing. But yeah, should be a fun show. Jackson is had some other commitments this week, so me and Rupert are holding down the fort and excited for the show tonight. We are going to be talking a little bit. It's a little bit of a turn. So we've been doing positional buys and sells. We went quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and so now we're the topic tonight. We're calling it the Commish Corner. All right, startup season is officially upon us, and many of you guys are in the process of joining or maybe even starting new leagues. And so there's a lot of questions about like what type of league should I join, especially if you're a new dynasty player, like what settings should I have? What settings should I not have? Especially if you're a commish, you're like, how do I set this thing up if you've not done it before? Maybe you and some buddies are trying to start a home dynasty league, but none of you have played dynasty before. So somebody's got to figure out, how do I run this league? And hopefully we're going to give you some helpful tips on that tonight. So we're going to be discussing some of our must-have settings in leagues, as well as some things that we want to avoid when joining or commissioning a league. So we're going to start with some settings that you might call them must-haves, or maybe they're just personal preferences. But we're going to talk like what are some settings that are really important to us when we are considering joining a new dynasty league. And I will throw it over to you to start with, Mr. Rupert. What is a must-have setting for you?
I've seen this play out the last couple of years, and I just think going forward, I'm not going to join a league unless they're using the max points for kind of scoring format to um, basically like seed the draft order for the teams that didn't make the playoff. And you kind of run into this situation a lot in Dynasty where teams are tanking intentionally to try and get a better spot. The things that you don't want to see is dynasty managers either not setting lineups or they're benching a star player like Justin Jefferson to start someone like Jalen Rager, so that they don't win their matchup, so that they lose. With the max points 4, even if they're on the bench, those points are still going to count towards their total for the year. So it's basically going to set the draft order for the teams that don't make the playoffs based on how strong their roster actually is. So I think it's just such a great way to, one, really benefit the teams that have, like full-blown tanked and, sold some of their best assets to actually tank instead of just kind of cheat the system and, bench all your star players to not win matchups.
Yeah, so you talked about tanking at first in a negative way and then later on in a positive way. So I'm going to clarify that in case people are somewhat new to Dynasty. Um, so if you're new to Dynasty, there is a draft every year, but it's not a total redraft of the whole league. It is a rookie only draft. And just like in the real NFL, the team that won the championship picks last. The team that is the worst team in the league picks first. But I think a tweak that a lot of dynasty leagues that you're talking about will implement is, instead of just reverse order of the standings, we're going to use this metric in Sleeper called max points for, which is essentially takes it as a best ball, the max points you could have scored if you had put in the best possible lineup that week, right? And it's going to calculate that each week, and then the total number at the end, from lowest of max points for to highest is how the draft order is going to be set. And tanking natural part of the dynasty life in the sense that if you feel like you don't have a chance to compete, you're better off selling assets for future picks, and you're gonna lose a lot of games, and you're gonna get your own draft pick is gonna be really high. You're also gonna have other people's draft picks, and it's a great way to kind of accelerate your rebuild. That's like what I would call good tanking or appropriate tanking, right? Is you actually sold your assets. Inappropriate tanking is what you're trying to avoid with max PF, which is like, I actually don't have a bad team at all. Maybe I had some bad injury luck, and so like, all right, I started 0-4 for whatever reason, but I actually have a pretty solid team. But now I'm gonna go for the number one pick by just not setting a lineup the rest of the year. That upsets the balance of the league. It's, the type of behavior that we want to encourage active league mates and setting your best lineup every week. And so, yeah, max PF helps to mitigate that. So if you're new to the dynasty position, that's a little bit of, obviously the tanking discussion is something that's always been heavily debated in the dynasty community, and there's a lot of nuance to it. But I agree with you there, Rupert. I think that's a good take. Mine is related. So I'm gonna say this is not a setting, but if I am joining a new dynasty league, bylaws are a must-have. And some of that is so that when tanking stuff comes up or whatever, like some of the other things that we're going to talk about even tonight, I think trade vetoes are going to come up later. Like there's all these things that come up in a dynasty league, and if you have not set out ahead of time clearly in a document called the league bylaws, how you're going to handle those situations when they come up, and then they do come up, utter chaos ensues because you have not clearly laid out this is how this is going to happen when this happens. And now everybody has an opinion on it, and things are going up for a vote, and you're like, dude, we should have decided this a long time ago. That's not fair. People get upset. Like everything feels really arbitrary, like the commish is just making up rules as he goes along. So to me, like if you're new to Dynasty and you've only played redraft, bylaws might seem really intense. Like why do I need this like official document that's like governing what we'll do and what we won't do and how we'll handle this? Like, trust me, dude, it's important. And so if you want a good set of like sample bylaws, join our Discord and post, and I'm sure there's a bunch of people who could post like a Google Doc or something of like a template for some bylaws that you could use and copy and paste or tweak for your league. But it's really, really important. And I personally am at the point where I would not join a new dynasty league if like if I reach out to the commission, I'm like, hey, where's the bylaws? And he's like, I don't think we really need them. I'm like, I'm out. Like I have no interest at that point. That's just screams that it's going to be a really poorly run league. So that's a must for me.
I'm in total agreement there. It's amazing, like all the different chaos ensuing situations that you run into after playing Dynasty for years and years and years. So totally agree. I'm not going to join a new league unless there's bylaws in place.
Yeah. All right. Well, what is your next must have or just a setting that you like to have in leagues?
Yeah. So if I'm going to join a new league, I really like the tight end premium settings. And the reason is, to me, like so often it's just, the top 2 or 3 guys are really the contributors at tight end. And then the rest of the guys are just, did they score a touchdown this week? I like to get away from being so tight end, or not tight end, touchdown dependent. So I really like the tight end premium settings, even if it's, something like a quarter of a point more per reception for them.
Yeah. So explain for folks who may not know what tight end premium
Yeah.
means.
So if you basically get a few extra points per reception, so if your league is like 1 point per reception, and you can have like an additional quarter point added on top of that for tight end receptions, or an extra half a point. Some leagues get crazy with it, like when we're in, where you get a full extra point per reception for them. So you may get, 1.5 points per reception or 2 points per reception for those tight ends getting
Yeah. So like
catches.
running backs, wide receivers would get 1 point per reception, and a tight end would get 1.5
Yeah.
points. Um, and yeah, I agree. I like that setting too. I think it takes a little bit of adjustment, but at the same time, it's become so standard in dynasty leagues that there's plenty of resources out there where you can find like tight end premium rankings and things like that. It's not so like wonky and uncommon that like it impacts your ability to do research as a new player. And I think it like you said, it just boosts the value of a really scarce position. And there's more guys that become relevant, and you can use some guys in flex spots that you may wouldn't have in a regular non-tight end premium league. So yeah, it's a fun setting, and I would add Superflex to that as well. I think most new dynasty leagues that start, especially home leagues, typically tend to be like one quarterback with no tight end premium, and then after a couple of years, that feels
Yeah.
boring, and so people, but you don't want to change. Those are like huge settings to change midstream. It's like once the league is started out, one quarterback, no tight end premium, it's kind of hard to change it. And so, yeah, for me, like I know most redraft leagues are not that, but for Dynasty, it just helps. It adds more intrigue to the quarterback and the tight end positions, and it adds more complexity, more trading options. There's a lot of benefits to it, and so yeah, I'm a fan of both Superflex and tight end premium. And my last must-have setting that I'm going to call out here is um, slow drafts. So, again, if your, you know, main history is like redraft, you're probably going like, what is a slow draft? And so this is both for the startup and for uh, the rookie drafts in following years. Like essentially, you're putting at least 8 hours on the clock per pick. And that means you don't have to find a time that all 12 members of the league are happen to be free all at the same time for this hours long draft experience. I mean, it can be fun if it's a home league, especially if you're able to do like an in-person thing. Like I get that. But if you don't do a slow draft in Dynasty, you lose a really crucial element, in my opinion, which is the ability to trade while you're on the clock or during the draft, like to trade up in the draft for a guy that you like, or you feel like, man, there's 4 or 5 guys in a tier here. I'd love to move back and pick up some value and still get a guy that I think is just as good or whatever. Like that. That is a huge element in Dynasty that you cannot do if you have like 60 seconds on the clock. Like there's no time to negotiate a trade. So slow draft is huge, and from a convenience standpoint too, like you can just always be drafting. Honestly, like for most of the month of May, after the NFL draft, I've got some kind of rookie draft going on in slow draft, and I might be at work and I see the notification, hey, you're on the clock, but I can't get to it for an hour or two. That's okay. I'm not stressed about it. Most of my leagues have like a 24-hour clock, and it's just like basically get to it when you get to it. Like we're not doing anything with this league. We're not setting lineups until September, basically. So there's no rush. Like just draft at your own pace. When you see you're on the clock, you've got time to figure out like, do I want to make a pick? Do I want to negotiate a trade? And, with that, hopefully your league mates are on board and they're not rushing people. And I think new players that aren't used to slow draft that are trying slow draft for the first time can get a little antsy and kind of take some of the fun out of it because they're in such a big rush. And so, yeah, I would say like do a slow draft, embrace the slow draft, and it's a great element to like to me it's a must have for Dynasty. I would not join a league if they were doing like a 60-second clock for the draft. I just wouldn't do it.
I couldn't agree more. The disappointment when you do a normal draft and, especially if it's like a 3 or 4 round rookie draft, that's over in an hour. and you're like, oh, all this build up for so long just for an hour and then it's done. With the slow draft, your draft can go on for a week or two. You're having fun negotiating with guys, and it just adds so many more layers to the draft as well as adding fun. That's like, why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah, for sure. Well, in a second, we are going to get into some settings to avoid or things that like are red flags for us when we join a league or are considering joining a league. And we probably honestly have more to say on that subject because, I think like for me, a lot of the things that are that I would want in a league I'm not necessarily married to. Like if somebody says, "Hey, there's no tight end premium in this league," I'm not like, "Okay, I'm not joining now." Like most of those aren't deal breakers for me. Like, oh, I prefer to like have relatively standard scoring settings. I don't like all these like points per carry and all these wonky things that like impacts my research. I'll talk about that later. But that's not like "Oh, I'm not joining the league because of that." In fact, it's kind of nice to have some variety. Like, okay, I've got this one that's a Devy league, and this one that's super flex tight end premium, and this one that's not, and this one has the um, tiered PPR settings, and so like some variety is actually good in my opinion. But there are definitely lots of things that I'm like, um, this is a hard avoid for me, and so we're going to talk about those. Um, but before we do that, we're going to take a quick break. And I want to let you know about the resources and tools that we have at CouchScouts.com. CouchScouts.com, we have an all 22 film room where you can study underclassmen, offensive prospects. We have IDP where you can get in there, individual defensive players. We have a rookie guide where we did in depth scouting breakdowns on over 70 players. We ranked them, we put them into tiers. We did everything that you would need to kind of be the ultimate cheat sheet for your rookie draft. Um, we have bonus podcasts every single week. So tonight, as soon as we get off of this show, Rupert and I were going to go record a bonus episode just for our members. We're going to go over our Dynasty tight end rankings. And we also offer one-on-one consultations. So we've gotten really, really great feedback on those that people are like, man, I love that you guys do this. And so you can schedule with us for 30 minutes to get on. We'll go over a roster of your choosing, help you develop a strategy and a game plan. And we've done a lot of those with members. It's been really fun for us, and we've got really positive feedback on it. So you can get all of those perks for $5 a month, and you can even save cheaper than that by going annual and saving 15% off of your year when you purchase a whole year in advance. So definitely recommend checking out couchscouts.com, and I think you guys won't be disappointed. The folks that have joined, we've gotten really good feedback on that. So join the Couch Scouts family. And with all that being said, we are going to jump into the second half of the show, which is things to avoid when considering joining a new league, or if you're about to maybe consider commissioning a league, running a league. These are things that I would recommend you not do. And I'll start with you, Rupert. What is your first thing to avoid here for a new dynasty league?
Probably my biggest thing and my biggest pet peeve that I've run into with fantasy football is leagues with trade vetoes. Um, and
Yes.
even like when trades just like go up for approval, they don't go through immediately. That delay, can kind of irk me. And then you start to see a trade's pending and people start reacting to it. You know, it just causes more frustration and issues within leagues. To me, y'all should be adults. It should be in the bylaws like that you should be making trades unless there's clear and obvious collusion. There should be no trade vetoes. People will value players differently. Uh, we say it all the time, and overpaid today may be underpaid tomorrow. So those kind of situations happen all the time where this trade may look lopsided when in reality it doesn't in the long term. Some guys are just
Hmm.
selling off their players to jumpstart their rebuild, things like that.
Yep.
And there should be no reason unless there's clear and obvious collusion to veto a trade. And
Yep. We were in a league that pretty recently where this guy for months was saying, please send me offers, please send me offers. We're trying to rebuild. Like he had been a contender the last couple of years. His team was clearly aging and he was ready to blow it up. And he was like, please send us offers, please send us offers. And he had all these really solid pieces, Saquon Barkley and AJ Brown and, just a lot of older guys, Stephon Diggs. And we finally sent an offer and it was like maybe not the best offer in the world, but we're just like, let's just see where this goes. And he immediately accepted it because he was just trying to blow it up and it was the best he could get. So he took it. And it was like for him, just getting some young assets and some draft picks, even if it wasn't like on a trade calculator, like fair, it was like, this is better because it's jump starting my rebuild instead of just letting these guys die on my roster. And so, whether it's a situation like that or it's just a conviction that you have, like, man, I think this guy's going to break out. I'm willing to overpay for him. Like those types of things, you have to let people manage their roster the way that they want to manage their roster. And I think this is another thing where when you have mostly redraft players that are coming over to Dynasty for the first time. And I don't think there should be trade vetoes in redraft either, but they're a lot more common there where you're like in the ESPN app, as soon as the trade goes through, it immediately goes to the league for a vote. And so people think that, oh, I have a vote. Like I can shoot this thing down. And it's the most like you put in all that work to like negotiate out a trade and you finally get it done. And then people come in trying to oh, I wouldn't have done that, so I'm gonna vote against it. It's like that's just horrible. It's not fun. It's not, especially for Dynasty, it's not a good way to run a league. So yeah, I'm totally with you. Trade vetoes are um, an immediate turn off for me on a new league. And yeah, I think it should be in the bylaws that trades, like you said, unless it's clear and obvious collusion, every trade goes through. And so I think that's a good call out for me. Man, there's a bunch of things I could say here. This is more of a personal preference. I'm gonna say auction drafts. I hate them. I don't find them fun. They take forever. Again, like with the dynasty element, the trading, how does that even work in an auction draft? Like you can't really, I guess you could trade auction dollars. I don't really know, but like they take forever. You're having to do math. I don't like math. I'm just not in. And even like with the rookie picks, if you have like a rookie auction, instead of having a rookie pick, you have like rookie dollars. And so like the 101 is worth X amount of dollars or whatever. It's like, that's too complicated, man. So I'm trying to trade and I'm like, so how many dollars should I be getting back for this player? I don't know. Like, I don't want to do that. So for me, and I know that there's some people who love it. And if that's you, that's great. I'm not telling you as the listener that you should avoid all auction leagues. I'm just saying for me personally, it's an instant like if I find out there's an auction element to it, I'm just not joining that league.
yeah, I used to do auction for redrafts, and I think it can be fun there, especially in person ones. One of my old home leagues that was, redraft for years and years and years. We would do an auction every year in person, so that would be quite entertaining. Um, but for dynasty purposes, particularly with the rookie draft, to me that it just makes no sense. I can see it for the startup draft a little bit more, um, but yeah, that's an auction for rookie drafts is bananas to me.
But when you think about like how long auction drafts take even for redraft, and then you think about how many more rounds there are for a
Yeah,
dynasty startup, it's like, bro, we're sitting here for 4 hours trying to do a live auction draft for the startup. Like, I'm just
yeah.
not into it. So personal preference for me, but that's one that I would avoid. What else? What's another avoid for you in dynasty leagues?
I will say kickers and team defenses to me just makes no sense in dynasty. One of our
Yep,
home leagues, we campaigned, you and I, for years to get rid of kickers and defenses. It's so
we did.
disheartening to, have the best roster in the league, and then someone has a kicker that goes for 30 points that week because their offense sucked and they kicked 7 field goals. It's
It's so random. And even like year to year, it's like, oh, this year, like I remember, oh gosh, what's that guy's name that was on the Cowboy? I think he was on the Cowboys, and he was like uh the number one kicker in fantasy football one year, and then the next year he's like got
yeah.
cut by the Cowboys. He wasn't
Greg
even on a
Garrett.
roster anymore. You're like,
Yeah.
yeah, Greg Zuerlein. So it's like, how does this even this for Dynasty, it
Yeah.
just doesn't work. Like, yeah. So I think what it came down to in that league, to finally get it traded was one year. Um, I'm pretty sure I won the championship because of getting lucky with a kicker, um, and would have lost otherwise. And that's what it took to finally get the vote passed was like I beat the commish off of a kicker fluke. And he might be listening right now, but I mean he's a great guy. It's a fun league, but we were like everybody had that was like our first dynasty league. Everybody had only redraft experience. And so, in redraft, of course, you have kickers and defenses. So we had them in there for years and we're just like, I hate this. So that would be an immediate turn off for me. And yeah, if you're a new dynasty player or you're trying to commish a new home league, don't put kickers and defenses in there like in this says then it'll take you having to vote them out later and it's a headache. So just right there from the beginning when the league starts, don't put them in there. All right, so my next one, I'm gonna say less than 10 starting lineup spots. Now redraft, that's pretty standard, but in a dynasty league, like things are deeper. And again, there's balance things where the league like the rebuilding teams are trading away their assets to the contending teams, and so the contending teams can build a better team than what they would be able to build in a redraft league. And so you've got so much depth on your roster, and to me, like when I have like 8 starting roster spots in a dynasty league, I just find, man, I have these really good players sitting on my bench that should be starting, and so I have to like slave over these lineup decisions every week, and then it just becomes luck of like, oh man, like was I gonna start Jahmyr Gibbs or was I gonna start Bijan Robinson? Oh well, I picked Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs went for 4 touchdowns this week, and I lost my matchup because of it. I clearly built a better roster than the guy that I was playing. I just got unlucky. So, like, I hate that in Dynasty. I feel like you should have like probably 3 flex spots, like 2 running backs, 2 or 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and then 2 or 3 flex spots at minimum, as well as like quarterback. And then if it's a super like 10 or 11, I think is kind of a sweet spot, but any less than 9, and I'm like out. I'm not even going to join the league.
I couldn't agree more. I like to take measures to reward the good dynasty managers that are really building out the full roster. So the having more starting lineup spots really rewards those guys and reduces the amount of luck in fantasy. There's just no way around it. There's always going to be luck involved with fantasy football, but
Of
the
course.
more that you can reduce it, it rewards the better managers
Yeah.
more often.
I mean, you draft well, it's like, oh man, like I was a contender, and then I just hit on my late first round pick. I got Brian Thomas Jr. in the late first round. And now like that's how you end up in these situations where you go, oh, what are you playing in an 8-team league? You got to decide between Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, what are you playing with scrubs? Like sometimes if you're a good dynasty manager and you make smart trades and you nail draft picks and you get Bucky Irving in the 3rd round and whatever, like you can build a really strong roster. And then when you have so few starting roster spots, it's just like you just can't benefit from that. Like I think Dynasty as a format it should be more about roster building than it is about lineup setting. Like it's not
Yeah.
we shouldn't be rewarding who's the best start sit guy in the league. We should be rewarding who's built the best dynasty team to the best of our ability. So, yeah, that's a big one for me. Do you have any other avoids that you would want to call out?
This isn't, like a hard avoid, but I would just personally avoid like a standard scoring format because, like we just talked about, like the standard scoring rewards luck a little more often because it is so touchdown dependent. Like normally the team that has the guys that scores more touchdowns that week is the one that's going to win the matchup. So I always like to go at least half point per reception or full point per reception to lessen the amount of luck.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. I Standard is kind of yuck. I don't think I would want to join a standard scoring league either. PPR, for sure. I don't even really like half PPR if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Um, I
I,
would say, go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say I don't like seeing matches where it's like 70, 80 points. It's always fun to have higher scoring like 140, 150, things
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah. So the last thing I'll call it, these are new Dynasty player specific. So if you're new to Dynasty and you're checking out the format for the first time, there can be a big learning curve anyway, moving from redraft to Dynasty. And so I would not join a league with a bunch of complicated or like unusual settings. So like tiered PPR can be really fun. Like, okay, we're giving half points per reception to running backs and a full point to wide receivers and a point and a half to tight ends. And we're going to do like 0.2 per carry and points per first down. And like, there's all these things that can be fun little twists. And if you're new, like there's already so much to process. And so you're looking up somebody else's dynasty rankings. Guess what? They probably didn't build those dynasty rankings around your super unique, weird scoring settings. They probably built them for standard PPR, maybe tight end premium, super flex. But like beyond that, they're not accounting for your weird scoring settings. So you've got to now figure all that out. Like, oh, should I value this player more because of these league settings? And I mean, you can do it, but I just think as a new player, you're adding in complexity when it's already a huge learning curve. So for me, like funky scoring settings as a new player is a no. More than 14 teams is a no. We had a guy that he's great. Ben is one of our Couch Scouts members. I did the consultation with him. We've been DMing a little bit. His first ever dynasty league that he joined was a 24 team league. I was like, what? Like I can't even I mean, on the consultation, I'm sitting there like thinking in my head, like, wait, so how does that change the value of this? And oh, like, so Isaiah Pacheco might actually be worth a first because if it's a late first, then it's like really a late second because there's 24 teams. And so there's like all this like mental stuff that you're having to like figure out the value on. And again, none of those resources you go to like somebody's dynasty rankings or a trade calculator or whatever. None of those are tailored towards the 24 team league. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
So you have to figure it out all on your own. It totally throws off your ability to do research. So again, as a new player, funky scoring settings and more than 14 team leagues is a hard pass for me. And I would not recommend your first dynasty league experience have any of those things.
Great call out. I couldn't agree more. I don't even know how to process more than 12 teams at all.
Yeah.
I can imagine 24 teams.
I was like, dude, like whatever league you do now is going to feel easy, I guess, because that's just
Right.
ridiculous. I mean, you have like two players that are worth starting, and the rest of your lineup is just scoring zeros. Like, how does that even work? But I did my first 16 team league this year, and I didn't even really love that, if I'm being totally honest. And I've been playing Dynasty for a long time in a lot of leagues, and I've still found that to be quite challenging. So even things like salary cap and IDP, individual defensive players, like those can be really fun, but I wouldn't do it as a new player. So, for me, if I'm a new dynasty player, give me a 12 team PPR, maybe super flex tight end premium, And that's about as complicated as I want to make it as a new Dynasty player. Just learn the format. So yeah, well, this was a fun show. Hopefully, it was helpful to you guys as you are thinking about joining a new startup or taking over an orphan, or maybe you and some of your buddies are talking about starting up a new league, and you can get some of these things set at the beginning instead of having a debate about them later and like, hey, can we vote to change this because it was set up wrong the first time? That's so much harder than just setting it up right. So hopefully this was helpful to you guys. And we bless you guys. Join our Discord. We've got a free Discord. We love to get to know um, the people that listen to the show. There's no strings attached with that. We'll have the link in the show notes. So join that. We've actually got a commissioner's channel on there where if you're a commish, you can go and ask other people like, how did you do this? Or how did you handle that? You can ask for sample bylaws, all that kind of stuff. So join the Discord, join the CouchScouts.com family, and appreciate you guys listening.